The Galactic Council sat in a massive chamber, each seat filled by representatives of the most advanced civilizations in the universe. The Council's neutral planet, Centauri 9, gleamed with technological marvels, an arena designed to host the most critical of intergalactic discussions. At the center of this room, a long, polished table stretched under a ceiling of holographic stars. The atmosphere was thick with the hum of artificial intelligence, quantum processors, and energy fields all working in harmony to maintain the delicate balance of the universe's most powerful species. Across from them, representing Earth, stood Captain Marcus Wells, a human, a man whose experience in battle had been forged on the front lines of countless wars. His appearance, though weathered, carried a sense of pride. His stance was unyielding, his expression calm, though deep inside, he could feel the undercurrent of mockery from the assembled alien species. The Council's main agenda was clear: humanity's inclusion in the Galactic Alliance. But there was a problem. The Council believed humans to be a primitive species, too unrefined for the grandeur of the galaxy's most influential powers. It was no secret that humanity's tech was decades, if not centuries, behind the likes of the Zorxer, the hive-mind insectoid race, or the Taldar, a species of sentient starships who had mastered the art of interstellar travel and weaponry. Yet it wasn't just the technology that made humanity a topic of ridicule. It was their survival instinct. "Tell us, Earth representative," said Zar, a towering member of the Zorxer, his voice deep and reverberating. "Your species claims to be a force in the galaxy. Yet your most advanced weapons are, how do you say, antiquated." His chitinous mandibles clicked as he spoke, causing the other council members to chuckle. "Tell us about your famed projectile weapons." "Shotguns, was it?" Marcus didn't flinch. "Yes, shotguns," he replied, his voice steady, despite the weight of the council's mockery. "And rifles, missiles, weaponry designed not for grandeur, but for survival. A weapon forged not in arrogance, but in the crucible of necessity." This did little to quell the amusement. The Taldar representative, a gleaming metallic figure, rotated his body slightly, his voice like the hum of an engine. "Survival, yes. But survival is no longer a matter of brute force, human. It is a matter of superiority. We, the Taldar, have ships capable of wiping out entire planets in a matter of seconds. Your weapons could not even scratch the surface of our hulls." The room erupted in laughter. Even the Taldar themselves emitted soft whirring sounds that suggested amusement. Marcus stood firm, eyes unwavering, but inwardly, his anger simmered. Another voice cut through the laughter. A high-pitched, almost musical voice belonging to one of the Kyrell, a species of beings who lived as pure consciousness. "What use is a human weapon when your enemy has no body to strike, no tangible form? The concept of physical violence is so crude." She raised a translucent hand, her fingers dissolving into fractals. "And what of your missile technology? Nuclear bombs? They are relics from a time when survival was measured by destruction." The room once again filled with mocking snickers. It wasn't just their weapons they were mocking, it was humanity itself. A species that had never reached the heights of galactic technology, a species that still relied on physical tools, outdated machines, and worst of all, emotions. "Humans," another voice chimed in. This one came from the HFY, a collective of energy beings whose physical forms could shift and phase through matter. "You are driven by your primitive instincts. You fight not because you are the strongest, but because you believe you can win. But that will not serve you here. The galaxy is beyond you." Marcus felt the words like a weight pressing on his chest, but he maintained his composure. "Survival isn't about having the biggest weapons," he said, his voice low but firm. "It's about refusing to give up when you have nothing left to lose. My people are survivors. We fight because we have to, not because we want to. We fight because that's what humans do." The laughter, however, continued. The Zorxer's insective legs clicked on the metal floor, the Taldar's holographic lights flickering in amusement. Only the THRYSS seemed to pause, as if considering the idea. But it wasn't enough to sway the council. They were too far removed from humanity's struggle, too far above its perceived inferiority. One of the Taldar's reflective panels flashed. I fail to see how a species that has not yet unlocked the secrets of intergalactic travel or mastered the vast resources of the stars can claim any sort of meaningful place here. Primitive is all you will ever be, Earth. Marcus knew what they were thinking. He knew they saw humanity as weak, outclassed by the grandeur of the galaxy's finest species. But he couldn't let their words stand unchallenged. He could feel the anger bubbling inside him, but more than that, he could feel his pride as a human being, one who had fought on the front lines, one who had seen the worst and still stood tall. He would not let them dismiss humanity so easily. He took a deep breath, letting the mockery wash over him for just a moment. But then, something inside him snapped. His hands clenched into fists. Without a word, he turned to the side of the room where an old case lay. Inside it was something that, for the Council, would be an unimaginable anachronism, a relic of a time long past. The laughter died, the room quieted as Marcus stepped forward and opened the case. A dull gleam reflected off the surface of a shotgun, rusted, worn, and undeniably human. The Zorkser stared in disbelief, the HFYs pulsed with confusion, and even the Taldar seemed to flicker in uncertainty. The weapon was a far cry from their polished, hyper-advanced armaments. It looked old. You laugh at these weapons, Marcus said, lifting the shotgun. But what do you know of survival? Of fighting for what matters most? This? He held the shotgun in his hands with a sense of reverence. This weapon has seen more than you ever will. It has been wielded by men and women who have fought, bled, and died for their survival. And it has never failed them. For a moment, there was only silence. The council members couldn't understand. To them, the shotgun was just an object, a useless relic of a backward species. Yet to Marcus, it was something more. It was a symbol of everything humanity stood for. The Zorkser leaned forward, his mandibles clicking. Do you believe that a gun, an antique weapon, can match the power of our fleets? The might of our technology? Marcus didn't answer immediately. He let the weight of the question hang in the air before he spoke, his voice unshaken. I don't believe it can match your power, he said. But I believe it can match your will to understand. You mock our weapons, but you underestimate what we've been through to build them. You underestimate the one thing you can't measure, humanity's refusal to give up. As he spoke, he slowly walked back toward the center of the room, his eyes fixed on the council members. The silence was now thick, but not with ridicule. It was with curiosity. Slowly, Marcus raised the shotgun, pointing it toward the air. Let me show you how a human fights when he has nothing left to lose. The chamber held its breath as Marcus aimed the shotgun toward the ceiling, his finger hovering near the trigger. The council members froze, their once confident postures faltering slightly. They had underestimated him, and now, they were unsure how to respond to the threat posed by something as seemingly insignificant as an old firearm. The silence was suffocating, punctuated only by the soft hum of the artificial systems surrounding them. Marcus stood there for a long moment, letting the tension build. His expression remained calm, but inside, his mind raced through the countless battles he had fought, the countless enemies he had faced, none of whom had ever fully understood what made humanity dangerous. It wasn't the weapons they used. It was the raw, unyielding spirit that came with being human. You mock my species, he said, his voice cutting through the heavy silence. You mock the tools we've used to survive. But this shotgun, this simple, outdated weapon, is a symbol of everything you failed to understand. You think it's a relic, something to be laughed at. But you don't know what it's like to fight with your back against the wall, to fight for survival when there's nothing left but your will to live. The council remained still. Marcus could feel their disbelief, but it didn't bother him. It was the same look that his enemies had given him before they realized they had made a fatal mistake. A warrior's arrogance, thinking victory was assured before the fight had even begun. He took a step forward, his boots echoing on the floor, the shotgun still raised in his hands. You think your technology makes you invincible. You think that because you can destroy entire planets with a push of a button, you've won the right to claim superiority over humanity. He gave a slow, deliberate shake of his head. But that's where you're wrong. The Talars shifted uncomfortably, their energy tendrils flaring slightly, a sign of agitation. The Zorkser clicked his mandibles together, an expression of annoyance, or perhaps concern, flashing across his insected features. The Kyrell, their translucent form pulsing, seemed almost intrigued, their fractal hands trembling faintly. You believe that our way of fighting is primitive, Marcus continued, his eyes now sweeping over each council member. But in truth, it's your way that's flawed. You've become so reliant on technology, so sure of your own superiority, that you've forgotten what it means to be human. To fight not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. To hold your ground when the odds are stacked against you, when everyone else has given up. You see, that's the true strength of humanity, our will to survive, our ingenuity, and our refusal to bow to defeat. The Talar representative, unable to hide his growing frustration, flickered violently. Enough of this foolishness, he said. You speak of survival, yet survival is no longer about physical combat. It's about strategic advantage. We, the Taldar, have mastered the art of interstellar manipulation, bending entire solar systems to our will. What hope does your outdated weapon stand against that? Marcus didn't flinch. Your strategic advantage is nothing without the will to use it. Technology can only take you so far. When the moment comes, when it all goes wrong, who will you be then? You think your fleets will always be there, your ships, your weapons, your perfected systems. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. But the moment you lose your nerve, the moment you hesitate, that's when you'll understand what makes humanity dangerous. When it's do or die, when everything's on the line, we'll fight until there's nothing left. The room was silent again, but this time it wasn't filled with mockery. It was filled with something else, doubt, curiosity, maybe even fear. Marcus took another step forward, lowering the barrel of the shotgun slightly. The council members exchanged uneasy glances, clearly unsettled. The Zorkser, normally so confident in their power, shifted awkwardly. The Taldar's metallic surfaces dimmed slightly, as if reconsidering their earlier arrogance. The Kyrell's fractals pulsed erratically, their minds working to comprehend the gravity of Marcus's words. You know what humanity has, Marcus said, his voice growing louder, filled with conviction. We have resilience. We have ingenuity. And we have the willingness to do whatever it takes to survive. You think we're beneath you, but we've been to the edge of extinction and clawed our way back. We've fought wars, pandemics, natural disasters, and even ourselves, and we're still here. We don't need the biggest ships or the fastest weapons. What we have is something that can't be measured by your technology, our will. He could feel the change in the room as his words hit their mark. The council members, who had once looked down on him as a simple, outclassed human, were now beginning to understand. It wasn't the shotgun, or the missiles, or the rifles he held in such high regard. It was the sheer willpower behind them, the drive to never give up, no matter the odds. Marcus straightened his posture, his voice steady. This weapon, he said, holding up the shotgun once again, may be old, but it's more than just a piece of metal and wood. It represents everything we are as a species. It's the tool of a man or woman who's ready to fight for what matters, whether it's a home, a family, or the very survival of our kind. And I guarantee, you won't find a race in the galaxy that has more reason to fight than we do. The room was silent for a long moment. Marcus stood firm, letting his words sink in. He wasn't trying to convince them of the might of human technology, or the advanced weapons Earth could one day possess. He was showing them something far more powerful, the strength of the human spirit. He raised the shotgun, taking aim at the ceiling once again. With a swift motion, he pulled the trigger. The blast echoed through the chamber, shaking the walls, but it wasn't the force of the shot that had everyone's attention. It was what happened next. The floor beneath them rumbled, and a series of panels suddenly slid open, revealing a hidden system buried deep within the structure of the building. The council members recoiled, their eyes wide with disbelief. The once dismissed human weapon had activated something far more sophisticated, a fail-safe, a relic from Earth's past, designed to protect humanity's most valuable assets. The Zorkser hissed in surprise, the THRYSS emitted a low hum of confusion, and the Taldar, for the first time since Marcus had stepped into the room, appeared visibly shaken. Marcus lowered the shotgun, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "I told you," he said. "We've been underestimated before. But it's not about the weapons. It's about what we do with them." The council members exchanged looks, the tension in the room palpable. Their confidence was shaken. They had underestimated humanity's capabilities, but they could no longer deny that there was more to Earth than they had thought. Marcus had proven that the true power of humanity lay not in their weapons, but in the heart of the people who wielded them. The room remained tense, the sudden activation of the hidden defense system casting a long shadow over the Galactic Council. For a brief moment, the council members appeared stunned. None of them had anticipated this. The Zorkser clicked his mandibles in confusion, the metallic sheen of the Taldar's surface flickering with uncertainty, and the Chiral-S fractals froze in a pattern that suggested something akin to panic. The quiet hum of the chamber's advanced systems was now overshadowed by the palpable realization that something profound had just occurred. Marcus stood unmoving, his eyes steady as he watched the council members react. The shotgun in his hand, once thought of as a joke, had just triggered a long-dormant defense mechanism, a relic from Earth's past that none of them had anticipated. He let the silence stretch out a moment longer before speaking again, his voice calm but carrying the weight of a truth none of them had yet fully grasped. "This," Marcus said, his tone deliberate, "is what happens when you underestimate humanity." He lowered the shotgun slightly, but his grip remained firm. "You thought we were primitive, incapable of understanding the complexities of the galaxy, didn't you? You thought that because we don't have fleets of ships that can devour worlds, or technology that bends the very fabric of space, we're somehow beneath you." He paused, letting the words linger in the air. The Taldar, who had been the most vocal in dismissing Earth's value, seemed to shimmer in the dim light of the chamber, his previous arrogance now replaced with a flicker of doubt. The Zorkser, whose species had always prided itself on its tactical prowess, clicked his mandibles together in rapid succession, clearly trying to process the implications of what had just happened. "But you were wrong," Marcus continued. "You underestimated us. And you'll continue to do so, as long as you measure our worth by the size of our ships, the strength of our weapons, or the complexity of our technology. But the truth is far simpler." The room fell into a heavy quiet again. The council members, once so sure of their superiority, exchanged nervous glances. Even the Chiral, whose form pulsed with translucent energy, seemed to shift uncomfortably. They had been caught off guard, and now, the foundation of their dismissal of humanity was beginning to crack. "What is it you want, human?" The Zorkser's voice broke through the silence. His mandibles were still, though his tone betrayed a sense of confusion. "You've shown us that your species has resilience. But that will not be enough to secure your place in the galaxy. It is not enough to survive, you must prove that you can thrive. That you can build alliances, gain power. Your primitive weapons, however surprising, do not make you a force to be reckoned with." Marcus didn't flinch. The Zorkser's words were what he expected. This was the moment when humanity would either be embraced by the galaxy or left to fade in the shadows of their more advanced counterparts. But he had already made his case, and now, it was time to show them what humanity could do. "I've never said that our weapons make us a force," Marcus replied, his voice calm yet resolute. "But what you need to understand is that we are not like you. We don't need to dominate or control the galaxy. We don't need to build fleets or create weapons of mass destruction to show our value. What we have is something more powerful than all of that combined." The council members exchanged uncertain glances. Marcus continued, his voice gaining strength. "What we have is the ability to adapt, to learn, to evolve. When faced with the most insurmountable odds, humanity doesn't simply lie down and accept defeat. We fight. We innovate. We take what we have and make it something greater. That's what makes us dangerous, not our weapons, not our technology, but our ability to think, to adapt, and to overcome." The Taldar's metallic surface flickered again, a clear sign that the words were having an impact. The Zorkser, who had once dismissed humanity's chances outright, was now visibly shifting, perhaps for the first time considering the strength of the human spirit. The Chiral-S fractal patterns, previously agitated, now seemed to slow, as if processing the implications of Marcus's words. "You believe that we're nothing more than survivors," Marcus continued. "That we're a footnote in the grand history of the galaxy. But let me tell you something. Survival is what has kept us here. And survival is not just a matter of existing, it's a matter of fighting, even when everything else tells you to give up. We have endured things you can't even comprehend, and yet we are still here, still fighting, still learning." The words hung in the air, their weight undeniable. For the first time, the council members seemed to recognize the truth in what Marcus had said. The arrogance that had once defined their attitudes was starting to crumble. They could not deny the strength in humanity's resolve, the drive to never give up, even in the face of overwhelming odds. The Chiral, her translucent form pulsing in response, spoke for the first time. "You are different," she said, her voice soft but filled with an unmistakable hint of admiration. "You fight not because you have to, but because you can. You do not seek power. You seek to prove that you belong, even when the universe has deemed you unworthy. That is something rare." The Taldar, still flickering with metallic uncertainty, added, "But you cannot simply survive forever on willpower alone. The galaxy will not wait for you to catch up." Marcus's expression softened, but only slightly. "We don't expect the galaxy to wait for us. We've never asked for that. What we ask for is the chance to stand beside you, to prove that we are worthy of being more than just survivors. We may not have the might of your fleets, or the grandeur of your technology, but we have something that transcends all of that. We have the will to build something greater, something lasting." The silence that followed was thick with contemplation. The Zorkser and the Taldar were still processing the weight of Marcus's words. The Chiral seemed to shift again, their fractal patterns calming, as if considering the deeper implications of what humanity represented. "Perhaps," the Zorkser said slowly, his voice now devoid of mockery, "we have been too quick to judge you, human. Your resilience, your refusal to give in, it is not something easily ignored. We will need time to reconsider our position." Marcus nodded, his gaze unwavering. "Take all the time you need," he said. "But know this, we are not asking for your permission. We are asking for the chance to prove ourselves. Give us that chance, and we will show you what humanity is truly capable of." The room was heavy with silence, but it was no longer the silence of mockery or ridicule. It was the silence of realization. The council members, for the first time, were beginning to understand that humanity was not just a species struggling to catch up. It was a species that had been surviving for a reason. And that reason was the very heart of humanity's strength, the unrelenting will to fight, to endure, and to prevail, no matter the odds. It was a lesson they would not soon forget. The tension in the room was now palpable, the silence stretching longer than it ever had before. The council members sat in stillness, absorbed in their thoughts. The gravity of the situation had begun to set in, and they no longer regarded humanity with the dismissive attitude they had entered with. Instead, they seemed to consider the implications of their earlier actions. The confidence they had once felt was now replaced with the uncertainty of having underestimated an entire species. Marcus watched them, his posture unyielding, his expression steady. He knew the stakes. He knew that this was a pivotal moment, not just for humanity, but for the future of the Galactic Council. He had made his case. It wasn't about the weapons they wielded, or the technology they possessed. It was about their willingness to fight, to adapt, and to endure. If that didn't prove their worth, then nothing would. After what seemed like an eternity, the Zorkser was the first to break the silence. His mandibles clattered together, as he slowly shifted his weight. "You speak of resilience, of survival. But survival alone is not enough to secure a place among us. We, the Zorkser, have survived for millennia. We have faced extinction, only to rise from the ashes. But we did not do so by relying on willpower alone. We did so by mastering our technology, by becoming stronger, faster, and more advanced with each passing generation. Marcus didn't flinch. He had expected this. The Zorkser, like the others, value power above all else, technology, fleets, weapons. But they had failed to see what made humanity truly dangerous: the ability to adapt, to evolve, and to never give up, even in the face of overwhelming odds. "You're right," Marcus replied evenly. "Survival alone isn't enough. But survival gives us something that your technology can't replicate. It gives us drive. It forces us to think outside the box, to find solutions in places you wouldn't even look. We don't have the luxury of relying solely on our fleets or our weapons. We make do with what we have, and we make it work." The Kyrell spoke next, her voice soft but carrying a weight of understanding. "I see now," she said, her form shifting as she adjusted her position. "You do not seek power. You seek respect. To be recognized not for what you have, but for who you are. For your will to survive, to keep fighting against impossible odds." Marcus nodded, feeling a shift in the room. The Kyrell, whose species had always prized knowledge and understanding, seemed to be moving closer to the heart of what humanity represented. "Exactly," Marcus said. "We don't need the biggest ships or the most advanced weapons. What we need is the chance to prove that we belong, not because of what we have, but because of what we can do. We will build our future, just as we have built our past, one fight at a time." The Taldar, who had remained mostly silent until now, spoke up. "And what of your future, human? You speak of resilience, but resilience alone cannot guarantee that you will thrive in the galaxy. It cannot ensure that your species will not be wiped out by those more powerful than you. Do you truly believe that your will to survive will be enough to protect you from extinction?" Marcus's gaze remained unwavering. He had heard these words before. He had heard the same doubts in the eyes of those who had faced him on the battlefield, those who thought they had the upper hand, only to learn that they had underestimated the human spirit. He knew the Taldar were afraid, not of humanity's strength, but of what they represented: an unpredictable force that could not be controlled, a species that could not be written off. "It's true," Marcus said slowly. "Our survival is not guaranteed. But that's exactly what makes humanity dangerous. We don't live by the rules of the galaxy. We make our own. We survive because we fight, because we refuse to die quietly, because we fight even when it seems impossible. And when it's all on the line, we'll find a way to win." The council members exchanged looks, their faces reflecting the weight of his words. The Taldar seemed to consider this, his metallic body flickering in a series of uncertain pulses. The Zorkser, though still skeptical, seemed to soften in his posture, the edges of his arrogance starting to erode. The Kyrell, once so detached, now seemed to regard Marcus with something akin to respect. "You are different," the Zorkser said again, his voice thoughtful. "Perhaps we have been wrong about you. You are not just survivors. You are innovators." He paused, as if weighing his next words carefully. "We do not underestimate you, human. Perhaps we were too quick to judge." Marcus felt the tension in the room begin to shift. The council members were no longer viewing humanity as a backward species, incapable of understanding the complexities of the galaxy. They were starting to see humanity for what it truly was: a force of nature, relentless, determined, and never willing to surrender. "That's all we ask for," Marcus replied, his voice steady. "A chance to prove that we are more than what you see on the surface. We may not have the strength or technology to conquer the galaxy, but we have something far more valuable. We have the will to survive, and the determination to keep moving forward no matter what." There was a long silence as the council members sat, contemplating his words. The tension in the air had begun to dissipate, replaced by a sense of understanding, a recognition that humanity's strength was not in its technology, but in its spirit. They had been wrong to dismiss humanity as a relic, a species stuck in the past, unable to keep up with the advancements of the galaxy. But they were beginning to understand that it wasn't about the technology, it was about the will behind it. Finally, the Kyrell spoke again, her voice soft but firm. "We will need time," she said. But I believe we have much to learn from your species, human. Your resilience is something that cannot be ignored. Perhaps, in time, we will see that there is more to humanity than meets the eye. Marcus nodded. Take all the time you need. But know this, humanity isn't going anywhere. We'll keep fighting, keep adapting, and keep proving that we belong, whether you choose to accept it or not. The room was still, but the atmosphere had shifted. The once dismissive council members now regarded humanity with newfound respect. The Zorxer, the Taldar, and the Kyrell, all of them had come to understand something that had eluded them before. Humanity wasn't just a species struggling to survive, it was a species that had mastered the art of survival. And that made all the difference. As the council members began to confer among themselves, Marcus stood firm, his expression unchanged. He had made his case. And in that moment, he knew he had done something far more important than securing humanity's place in the Galactic Council. He had shown them that no matter how advanced they were, no matter how powerful their technology, they could never fully comprehend the strength of the human will. The fight was far from over, but humanity had already won something far more valuable: respect.